This is 808s and Fast Breaks, episode 16, Sweet 16. I am Jason Amar here with my good friend Andy Cordell.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
And yeah, it's been about a week, I think, something like that, since we got together and chatted some basketball. Just to run through kind of our schedule for today. We're gonna give you a recap of all the finals action. Game 5 just happened as we're recording Monday evening here. Warriors taking a 3-2 lead in that one, winning at home. And then we'll kind of do a fun question, a fun little activity. Someone suggested on TikTok that we do our top 5 shooting guards of all time. So we're gonna go for that. And then we'll also jump into some NBA draft conversation and talk about the main 3 guys. If you've kind of been following any college basketball or draft conversation at all as we get into that season, then you know the top of the draft is kind of centered around 3 main guys: Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Jabari Smith Jr. So we'll kind of do our own deep dive as we've watched a bunch of film and interviews and what have you over the past couple weeks on these guys. But yeah, let's just get right into it, man. I'll let you kind of set the stage for the game we just watched. Before that, actually, our predictions from the last episode, let's just recap those, because we were kind of joking that we're not good at it, making predictions. But we kind of did decent this time. We both got a few things right here. For game 3 and 4, we had kind of had it flipped. I had those right. I thought Boston would win game 3, and Warriors would even it up, take home court advantage back in game 4. But then I thought Boston would go on to win game 5 here and close it out in game 6, which I was wrong about. And you obviously had that game 5 prediction right. So talk to me about game 5, man. How do you think the Warriors got it done today? What stood out to you when you watched the game?
Well, I think Boston kind of came out not as aggressive and decisive with their decisions. I think the narrative overall was kind of a shaky start by Boston. But the crazy thing was that, they made it a game. It was getting close. By halftime, you're kind of sweating bricks because you're like, anybody can kind of take this, And unfortunately, on the night that I bet on Steph to, make at least 3 threes, 4 threes, he has his worst 3-point shooting exhibition. But that just shows that Steph's teammates, like everybody kind of really stepped up. I think Draymond really took a bigger role and more, I guess, decisive role in the playmaking and facilitating. Even though he did foul out, I still think he made a much bigger impact. And I think part of that is just like home court advantage. I think, Golden State, just a very good, strong home team. And like when they're clicking and they got the fans going, it's like, it's kind of hard to get off of all of that too. And then the calls were a little bit rough today as well. I mean, I'll let you get more into that if you want to, but
yeah, for sure. No, I think there was definitely like a little bit of like a home court whistle from the refs today. It wasn't reflected so much in the free throws, pretty even in the free throws, but just in terms of like what was called and what was let go, it felt quite inconsistent at times. There were, Tatum seemed to be getting hacked a lot, and Wiggins got a couple iffy calls on the other end. Huge game from Andrew Wiggins, like game of his career. He ended with 26 and 13.
Absolutely.
I don't know where that came from. And then Clay had a nice bounce back game. He hit 5 threes. So, even though Steph had a poor game, those guys stepped up. Jordan Poole stepped up. And like you said, Draymond kind of finally had the bounce back game that, as me and you thought would happen last game. But yeah, he looked like traditional Draymond, I think, in every sense. He was so fucking annoying to watch today. Like,
Mr. Triple Single.
Yeah, not even like triple single for sure, but just like so annoying. Like he was like when the ultimate example of it, I think, is when Tatum was just trying to walk back to the bench and he wasn't letting him walk back to the bench. He's trying to poke the ball and get it back. Like, that
I
was
know.
ridiculous. You're up 11. There's a few minutes left in the game. Let the motherfucker walk back to his own bench that he's already got 15 guys surrounding you at. Like, he's on his side.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that was just ridiculous to me. Draymond's so fucking annoying to watch. I don't like him. You know, this is like to watch. You know, I have nothing against him. I'm sure he's great as a person, but yeah. And I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The decisiveness from the Warriors, the decisiveness from Draymond, playing to their strengths, playing fast, and then playing pretty stellar defense, getting in the passing lanes. Again, I mentioned kind of the getting some friendly calls and a friendly whistle, right? But they played good defense a lot of the time. When I noticed, to kind of get a little bit technical, we don't need to dive in too much on this, but they started to hard double Tatum at the top quite a bit, and they won the 4-on-3s every time with their rotations. That's what was super impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if they do that one more time, they'll win it in Boston. That was just like, it was a shit display again from Boston shooting the ball, especially down the stretch, and that just can't keep happening if they're going to win another game in the series.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
All right, man. Well, anything else to add on Game 5, or should we jump kind of into predictions for Game 6?
I think we should just jump into predictions for Game 6. You know what I mean?
All right,
Game 5
sounds good.
We got everything.
Game 5 is ancient history now.
Yeah.
So Game 6, do you think Boston can pull it out, or you think the Andrew Wiggins led Warriors can close it out?
I think Boston wins it. Because they've never lost 2 games in a row, and from everything that we've seen from Boston this postseason, I'm never gonna count them out for like winning one more and taking it to 7. You know, Ime Udoka has like proved that his coaching style works, and obviously everyone in Boston's bought in. And at this point, I think they can take one at home. It's a hard floor to win on, and I think they'll learn from the mistakes that they're having and minimize the turnovers. That's what I think is going to be the biggest thing in Game 6. Is I think they'll have less than like 14 turnovers, hopefully, and that will change the way the game's being played.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think Boston backs against the wall elimination game, and the fact that they don't lose multiple games in a row this postseason, I think they'll be able to squeeze one out. It's probably going to be pretty low scoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hopefully the turnover disparity isn't as crazy. I think it was 18-6, if I have that correct, what I'm looking at right now.
It was pretty bad.
That can't happen again. They're going to get blown out of the water at home if that happens again. But let's jump to a fun topic here. We had someone reach out on TikTok on one of our recent videos here and ask us to do a top 5 shooting guards of all time. So I know I gave it a little bit of thought. You gave it a little bit of thought. I'll let you kind of go first. We can talk it out, and then we'll kind of recap at the end. Who are your first guys that come to mind, top 5 shooting guards of NBA history?
Okay. It goes Michael, Kobe, Wade, AI, and Klay Thompson.
Klay.
Yeah, dude.
That's interesting. Okay.
Because Klay's about to win his 4th ring.
I mean, I get it.
And that's how I feel about it at this point.
One of the best
winning
shooters of all
guard.
time.
All time. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I can see where you're coming from. I think I agree with you on the first 3 for sure.
Okay.
Mike, Kobe, Wade. I think as shitty. Who was your 4th, by the way? I'm already forgetting.
Mine was AI.
AI. Okay. Yeah. I mean, as shitty as it is, I think I kind of gotta put Harden in there. I'm kind of debating. I think I'm going to go 4. And then I'm actually going to go Ray Allen 5th.
Okay, because mine was either Clay or Ray.
Yeah, I think you got to get another shooter in there.
And that was a hard
also
decision.
I also thought about T-Mac. T-Mac's my honorable mention.
Yeah, dude.
Anyone else that like, you don't want to like forget to mention?
Well, I mean, you have to account for Vince Carter, dude.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? The
That's
influence. Fair. I mean, and dude, longevity. He played amazing for many years. He just fell short on some places, but he's still one of the greatest shooting guards to ever play.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, man. Cool. Well, top 5 shooting guards of all time for you. Again, you want to say it real quick?
Yes. Yeah, it's Michael, Kobe, D Wade, Allen Iverson, Klay Thompson.
Yeah, and I think I go same 3: Michael, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, James Harden, and then Ray Allen for me.
Yeah, that's good. So, good list right there.
Hey, all great players. Honorable mentions: T-Mac and Vince Carter. Yes, shout out to that person on TikTok for suggesting that question. That was a good one.
That was dope. Please keep asking questions. We love it.
Yeah, definitely. Please keep sending them in. And now we're gonna kind of do a deep dive conversation here, a little bit of draft conversation, and this is kind of, I think, a good intro because the draft is in 10 days. We've been kind of putting on our GM hats here, scouting hats, and I think some more draft content is to come. Well, I think we're going to try and do a full big board episode, mock draft episode, and just kind of talk rumors as we get close to it. And then me and Andy usually get together and watch the draft in person together most years. So I'm sure we'll try and do that again. And have some fun recap content as well. But the top 3 guys, Jabari Smith Jr., Paolo Banchero, and Chet Holmgren, they've kind of been the consensus top 3 for what feels like a year almost, like since the last draft ended, right? And especially Chet, right, has kind of been in the minds of scouts and NBA fans.
Right.
I'll leave my bias out, even in introducing the question. Who do you want to talk about first? Who do you like the most? Who do you lean to? Just take it wherever you want to go, because I think there's so many different angles that we can talk about this from. I don't even want to try and set it up in any way. Let's just kind of have
go. Okay. All right. Then I think the first of the top 3 picks that I think we really need to talk about is really going to be Chet. I think Chet is truly an outlier here in terms of where he's been ranked, and I think basketball philosophy really kind of dictates a lot of people's feelings about Chet, right? Like, tall, has guard-like skills, right? And like he's coming off pin down sometimes. The way he plays is completely different and weird for his size. And while he's like lengthy, people question like how his body can handle the league ahead of him. And I think that's just a really interesting place to start off, is with Chet and the benefits that teams would want to get from him. And I think in terms of defensively, I think he could be the best of the 3 in terms of versatility. And I mean, that's just kind of where my mind started, just like kind of watching film on him, how he's just an absolute monster.
No, absolutely. You can't watch him, I think, and not just think that there's like not all defense, maybe even defensive player of the year potential. You know what I mean? So when you start thinking about that, it's salivating, right? But then you get pulled back to earth when you realize all of that is in like maybe less than 200 pounds. He's 7 feet tall.
It's like 195.
Yeah, and he's like maybe 200 pounds soaking wet, right?
Right.
And obviously that's like, there have been players that have made careers, nice little voice crack there for me, made careers not not in the weight room, right? Kevin Durant's like the first one that comes to mind. Didn't even register a single bench press at the combine. But if he doesn't play the big man position, and maybe Chet's going to evolve, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like an inverse of Dirk Nowitzki, right? Dirk came in and everyone thought he was going to be a 3. And it actually turned out that he was better off as a 4 most of his career, and later in even like a stretch 5, right? So it's just interesting. Like, he's a genuine unicorn. Like, we use that word so liberally, but he, like, actually, we don't know what he is. I think that's how that word needs to be used. It's not that he's like can do everything. Oh my god. Like, unicorns are like mysterious. Like, we don't know what he can do. But maybe he can do everything, you know? My big hesitation and hang up, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is just the scoring from Chet. He played in a Gonzaga system, right, that doesn't lend itself too much to like individual scoring, isolation scoring. But were there, like, when you watched some of the tape from him, did you get those glimpses? Do you think he has a chance to be an offensive force in the league, or teams who are thinking about drafting him that high, Orlando, OKC, and Houston need to just be banking more on defensive potential?
I think, and I'm sure, as you've been scouting, Chet is not going to be playing in any type of way a prototypical big man role. And I think a good example of where Chet can really balance out everything that he brings to the table is just looking at how the Cavs play Evan Mobley with another big. Chet, the thing about him that I really like, and I'm not saying that Paolo or Jabari do not have this either, because they do, but I really like how Chet kind of feels out the game a little bit, because even though he's big, there are times where opposing bigs, and in the college setting, did kind of bully him and push him a little bit. But on the offensive end, because he's actually a pretty reasonable passer, he can kind of be a shot creating hub, almost kind of how like Evan Mobley is for the Cavs
in that
sense.
short role, right?
Yep. And yeah, with another big man, hopefully because Chet cannot be Chet can be your biggest player on the court, but he can't be your like true 5 on the court. I don't think he'll ever get to that point. And that's what a lot of people are saying is, oh, he'll gain weight. It's like, no.
Only in a small ball lineup ever. You're not going to put on 50 pounds of weight.
He won't. That's
Giannis
just not his body type.
Giannis has made people like expectations crazy in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to gain that much weight. It's just I guess there's always a small chance. I'm stupid to say that's impossible, I should say, but that's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
And I think that's like where you start to look at the other guys, right? Because the other two guys, and I don't want to pivot completely from Chet here, but the other two guys are going to offer more, of the natural NBA archetype, body, scoring, all of it, right?
Right.
So I think in some ways you can view those two, being Jabari and Paolo, as a lot safer than Chet.
I agree.
Even though all the hype seems to be on Chet, right?
Right.
And that's why I have him ranked 3rd on my board as of right now. It's just because I have some hesitations with all of that. And before we kind of started taking a real deep dive in the last week here, I would have put him 2nd, I think. But after watching it, I just have a little bit more hesitations. His running gait makes me nervous. His kind of like hunchback, I don't know what else to call it. It's kind of rude.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like a hunchback kind of thing. And it's like, it has obviously not presented him any issues, right? But it just like, there's something about it that isn't like 100% passing the eye test for me. Not saying that he's not going to be a great player, just that maybe he's not number 1 pick player. Um,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I think part of that is like, I think maybe you're getting like a little bit more, like a little more athletic Kristaps Porzingis, but limited offensively, right? Like maybe he can move a little bit more laterally, but you're not
Mm,
getting the offensive polished game that Porzingis ever like has. You know, people kind of shit on him that he doesn't have a post game, but he's decent. He's a good offensive player. You know, and he was really really good before the injuries. So that's like, I think you look at Mobley, Porzingis, right? I think the defensive potential is in that mold. But I don't know if the offense is going to get there. That's just kind of
mm,
where I get hung up.
right. Right. I agree. I think Chet offensively, the biggest thing is like shot creators of all sizes. One thing is that you would hope that they have somewhat of a good handle of the ball. I think I think Chet for his size is a great ball handler for his size,
Absolutely.
right? And it is game changing how sometimes he can just grab a defensive board and run the floor. I think realistically speaking though in the NBA, I just don't see him getting that much freedom to be doing that, against professionals where people really have quick twitch defenders in the NBA. They're everywhere now. It's almost needed. And I
Yeah.
think where Chet really needs to grow is that spot where it's like, do I create a shot for someone else or do I take the shot? And if I take the shot, how fast can I get to it? Because he's been so tall that it doesn't matter if defenders like close out early because he's been able to shoot over. But once he gets to the NBA, there are going to be defenders willing to jump and meet him there. And I think the
Yeah.
speed of the game is going to
I
be
think
the
of Robert
biggest adjustment.
Williams. Robert Williams, guys like that are gonna close out and catch a couple of those. You know.
Right, right. I agree. Someone like Robert Williams is the perfect example of someone I think would be an absolute nightmare for Chet. And I could see how everyone is truly worried about his size. I will say one thing defensively though that I think really sticks out to me from Chet more than everyone else is just his natural timing for shot blocking without fouling.
It's
He
incredible.
It's so crazy how like at times he's so lengthy he doesn't even need to jump and he already preemptively has both hands around the rim, which I think is a very hard skill for NBA bigs today to naturally have that perfect timing. And I'm hoping that that translates well and that could avoid him fouling as much too, just because big men are going to be attacking him quite a lot in the post. You would hope that his fundamentals on defense and his reactionary, blocks could kind of carry him through whatever couple years, a period where he needs to develop the knowledge of the game at that level.
Absolutely. I think in you bring up some of the ball handling stuff. I kind of think there's like some Al Horford elements to his game in that respect, which I love. You
Mhm.
know, the ball handling, the playmaking, in that in the short roll, like you mentioned. Um, but enough about Chet. We're gonna talk more and more about him. It's like the guy who's gonna get the most
Yeah.
coverage. So, and
Right,
only
right,
thing I'll
right.
say about him is, even though I have him ranked third, there's no way in hell I think OKC passes on him at 2. It's just too perfect of a fit. Um, so I will say that big board doesn't equal mock draft.
Right, right.
But a mock draft doesn't equal real draft. But who do you want to go to next? Who's your next guy? Pick one of the Jabari and Paolo.
I think Jabari.
Okay,
I've
Jabari.
had
Let me start then.
yeah.
Let me start.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Jabari is my guy. My number one player in this draft. Not by a mile. It's close, right? Um, but I wrote this and I'll read this like verbatim. I was just thinking I had to have something like why, like a kind of a statement of why he is number one, just like, unapologetically. And it's because of the defensive versatility. We talk a lot about Chet, but Chet is not guarding 1 through 5. Jabari genuinely has the ability to guard 1 through 5 if he hits his defensive peak. People say he's stiff, but the stiffness is more so on the offensive end, right? A la Michael Porter Jr. And if I told you that you were going to get Michael Porter Jr. with all defense potential, that's going to go number 1 in the draft every year, and you would not say sorry for doing it. So that is my ultimate Jabari take. But to get into a little bit of kind of like the nitty gritty, his actual jump shot is like picture perfect, super high release point. He's 6'10", long wingspan, shoots over the top. Falls in love with the jump shot a little bit. I will say the 2-point percentages leave a little bit to be desired. But I think a lot of that comes down to what his role is going to be too. Like if you think about Michael Porter Jr., I'm going to kind of keep using that comparison. Rashard Lewis, another one, right? But with more defense, is the 3-point rate is going to be so high. Like right, even in college, 44% of his field goal attempts are 3-pointers. And people can say that's a bad thing, but I kind of think it's good. I think it lends to the kind of shots that he's going to be getting. And if he's a number 1 option playing with like good guards, pick and roll, pick and pop, and able to read the defense from there, that's obviously his next step. Similar thing that Jason Tatum had to do. Another big wing kind of had to do, right? Brandon Ingram evolved as a playmaker. Those sort of things, like he's got, he's not a perfect prospect, but that base is just so great. If I had to ask for like a little bit more negatives to the, I would ask him to get a little bit more to the free throw line, right? Be a little more aggressive, use that frame. He does a decent amount. The free throw rate is pretty similar to Paolo, right? For someone who has like a little more of a downhill reputation. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take. I think Jabari is like my like clear cut number 1. But albeit not by much. Like the bar, like or like the gap is not high between the other two guys. So what do you think? I know you said you might have made me a little happy after you looked at it a little bit more. So I mean, do you think he's number 1, number 2? Where do you think he lands?
He's number 1. He's number 1. But just like you had that caveat, it's albeit not by much. I think the real reason why he's number 1 is because he is truly a perfect plug and play player right now at this level.
Yeah, well said.
And the thing is, it's like if you get the 3 GMs in a room right now and they say, let's just say the owner's like, gun to your head, I don't want to bust. Jabari is clear consensus will not be a bust. He's going to be a good and great player. His fundamentals are all there. He takes extreme pride on perimeter defense. And for someone that long, right, and that big to be able to keep up with guards at times and pretty much lock wings, it's a beautiful skill set to have in Orlando. And I think offensively, I don't think he's going to have to do as much ball handling, but just like you've said, these wings that have been drafted recently throughout, the past few years, Tatum, Ingram, every team is leaning towards a forward taking more playmaking responsibility. And I think the beautiful thing about Jabari's game is if he continues to shoot the way that he does, I truly believe he can use his gravity and his playmaking will follow afterwards. Because
absolutely.
The gravity is what really matters, in the NBA when you're talking about like high draft picks. It's like how much attention can you command when you're trying to score? And I think Jabari will be able to fit into that role perfectly with Orlando. And that's why I think hands down he is the number 1. It took me a while, but I eventually got there. The film's just too good, and it's too enticing to say
it's
no.
Impressive, man.
It is. It's
did you watch any of the Florida game?
Yes, I watched
It's
highlights of almost the whole
fucking
season. So
incredible, man. So when he and I love they ran the play so much. Like when he would come up, they would swing it to the weak side. He would he'd show a lot against zones, right? They use a lot against zones. He'd show at the top of the key, at kind of the free throw line, look for the ball on one side. They swing it to the weak side. He swings to the other side, shows, runs up to screen, slips the screen. He's screening for like the corner side, slips back to the center of the court, open three, cash every time. And that's such an NBA play. You know, the patrolling the zone is not NBA, but the actual action there on the wing is just that's a classic NBA action, wing pick and roll, and it's going to get used so much. And I just like I'm excited, man, like cuz he's so good at those things, and like if he can take that next step, I think the what's made about his woes as a ball handler is a little bit much, right? He's he's a 2 or 3 dribble guy right now, you
oh,
know,
for sure, yeah. But you can do a lot with two and three
but
dribbles.
when you can shoot over everyone the way he can, it's fine, and he's still able to grab a board and push, you know. He can make outlet
Yep.
passes, like he'll be fine, you know. So I think a lot of that's overblown.
Yeah.
um And I think the other big thing is if he gets taken number one, I think a lot of people are forgetting because he didn't have an amazing season, but Jalen Suggs was taken very high by Orlando last year. And I just think about the pick and roll with him. If he can evolve as a shooter, Jabari's already a great shooter. That's a crazy defensive tandem in the pick and roll going forward. They're both like bulldogs defensively. Um, Fultz is amazing defensively. Like I think Orlando could be building something pretty great on the defensive end.
Yeah, don't forget Cole Anthony too, who's had amazing stretches offensively, who I think
Yeah.
like eventually could I think if Orlando was smart, I think they should make Cole Anthony take the Jordan Poole role
Yeah.
on
6 man.
offense. 6 man, come off the bench and spark 2025. Orlando could be very, very fun with Jabari.
We're
And I
forgetting
think
Franz Wagner too.
oh Wagner, oh my gosh, I forgot about Wagner. And he's been pretty damn good too. Yeah, Orlando's looking good. I think Jabari's perfect for Orlando. It kind of breaks
Definitely.
my heart cuz I think we need to talk about the next guy.
I was literally just
Yeah.
about to say we need to talk about why it was so difficult for you to arrive at this conclusion, and why we keep saying it's oh so very close is because Paolo
Yeah.
Banchero, who's both of our number two, I'm assuming. Um,
No.
oh, you went
No,
Chet number
actually.
two?
Yeah. Paulo's going
Wow.
3 in my opinion
Just
to
so everyone
Houston.
knows, Andy went into this expecting Paolo to be his number one.
Yeah.
So that's surprising to me. Talk to me a little
Right.
before we talk more about Paolo. I guess this is kind of talking a little bit about him. Maybe it's an indictment of him more so than it is pros of Chet. But why Chet over Paolo for you?
I think okay, so Oklahoma City has the second pick.
No,
And
do it from a big board angle.
from a big board angle. Okay.
Just
Well,
like in a vacuum, if it didn't matter who had the pick, ranking
if it
them.
didn't matter. Okay, so if it didn't matter, the other thing too about Chet that I truly like is I'm telling you, it's just the defensive awareness. When he's locked on, it is a sight to behold. And when you can be as dominant and versatile with at that size, it's like you got to kind of take that unicorn risk for me because I think Paulo Paulo's skill set is really a lot about himself and not necessarily the players around him. Um, and I think that comes with the risk because you're investing because Paulo kind of runs the show a little bit. He can do a little bit of everything. And that's why like he's taken such like a playmaking kind of style where he can pass out, but he can also get a shot in the mid range. That's an investment on potential culture center. Like if they build around him, a lot of the offense is going to run through him. Chet, I feel like not necessarily. And that's where it's like you can kind of plug and play That's what I really want, because there is a risk to an investment of building a culture around somebody or building around someone that's heliocentric like Paulo is.
Absolutely. No, I can agree with parts of that. Right now, this could change, right? 10 days left again. But for me, Paolo's too, just because of some of the offensive potential,
So good.
offensive league. And the biggest thing is if he fucking tries, man, he could be really, really good defensively. It's frustrating. Obviously, like Chet is a more guarantee on that end, but I think that's not what you take big swings in the draft for.
Mm-hmm.
And if big board angle, right? I think Paolo's my number 2 guy, because I see all the good things I love about Julius Randle in him. I love like the downhill. He's a
Okay.
bully. There's guys that bounce off of him. He dunks on people. He's a really good playmaker, kind of in that mid post, right? When he's driving, he's a pretty decent playmaker. But he's so like dominant one-handed. That's the biggest thing I noticed. He does not use his left hand. And the other thing is the defense is just like he turns it off and on. And when he's on, he's very impressive. He's made a couple really nice like weak side rotations, good blocks, good shot contests, right? But I just don't see it like all the time. So it's frustrating, right? So that's like, I don't know. Like right now I have him locked into the Rockets, and that may not be like the best thing for him just from that angle, right? Because they're just gonna try and beat people with offense. But I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on that? Do you kind of get that same read or
Yeah. I
or
mean,
what?
that's the one thing that I don't want to say it's like intangible, because it's possible, but like defensive motor is actually really, really hard to find in the league. Like true defensive motor. And that's why I value Chet so high. It's just because, dude, the man never gives up on a play. Even if he gets beaten, like he's going to try to go for it. And, Jabari's the same with wing defense and ball pressure. So when I look at Paulo going to Houston, I don't necessarily know if that's going to help any of his defensive lapses. But I will say offensively, though, it could be quite a little fun show. Especially,
Absolutely.
yeah, especially with Christian Wood as his
Jalen
center
Green,
and Jalen Green.
Kevin Porter, Sengun.
Yeah, it's like offensively, I could see some things lighting off, because Paulo really does have the ability to be the offensive hub. Like, in a sense, I think what Paulo's goal should be if he gets drafted number 3 to the Rockets is really to try to be a more well balanced Draymond Green in a Houston offense and try to take a playmaking
Be
role
interesting.
and
You
drive to the rim.
need more defense to get that comparison.
Absolutely. I meant offensively only, though. Because honestly,
Okay.
if he goes to Houston, it's like, is there any defensive enforcer on their team to hold anybody accountable? It's like, no. So
Um okay, so we talked a lot about these 3 guys. I kind of want to close off by just saying like even if it wasn't really going to like work out, right, with where the picks are and whatnot, what team do you most want to see each guy on? And we can start with Chet. Where is the most fun landing spot for Chet Holmgren?
I think the most fun place, he wouldn't drop this far, but I think Sacramento could be pretty cool for him.
Play with Sabonis?
And De'Aaron Fox
Could
and
be cool.
Davion Mitchell. I mean, like,
It'd
you'd
be
have.
weird. Be weird.
I think it could work, though, because Chet has always been able to work well with traditional bigs.
Yeah,
And
true.
so,
With Timmy at Gonzaga and
mhm.
Sabonis Gonzaga connection, which kind of relates. I think actually Orlando taking Chet 1 is the most fun outcome, like just for him, right? He gets to play with his best buddy Jalen Suggs again.
Mhm.
They played in high school together.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs is the reason that he went to Gonzaga. So that'd just be cool. I love Jalen Suggs. I mean, I'm kind of partial to that, but I think that'd be fun. What about Paolo? What's the most fun landing spot for Paolo to you?
Oklahoma.
You think so?
Well, okay, it's kind of weird.
I don't know about that, honestly.
No. Hear me out. Okay. The thing is, it's a big question, because there's a lot of questions revolving around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and where he's gonna kind of fit into this whole thing. Because as far as everybody's concerned in the OKC, they love Josh, and I think Josh and Paolo together could be kind of fun to think about, because that's where Paolo has to take less of a playmaking role. And I think if you want him to be a bucket getter, I think that's where we're going to see the most is in Oklahoma.
I see where I kind of see where you're coming from now. When you were talking about the more scoring potential, I get it. That's fun.
It is.
This is like probably the most unlikely thing I'm going to throw out, but I think my most fun, and I'll never say that this landing spot is fun again, but the most fun landing spot to me for Paolo is Indiana. It's not going to happen because they're down at 6, but him playing with Tyrese, that's very similar to what you're saying with like De'Aaron Fox for Chet. I think that fast break partner, the way Paolo wants to play. But he'd also get to partner up, he'd be playing the 4 next to Turner. So he wouldn't have to worry about some of that rim protection. He can slide with smaller guys pretty well. So I think that would play to some of his defensive strengths and let him, him and Tyrese would be the show. So that could be pretty fun.
And then they got Buddy Hield too, which is like really cool. And like they'd have, that Indiana would be very, very fun. I think
like it's not going to happen.
But it's just, I don't think
they probably pick a little too late, but
right.
No, for sure. Like it's not going to happen because I think they pick a little bit too late, but it's fun, in my opinion. And all right, let's lastly, Jabari. What's your dream landing spot for Jabari?
We all know, baby. 7 to the Blazers. It's my dream.
That dude, he's the guy we've been wanting forever. I agree.
He's the perfect player for Portland right now. And it's just like, damn, that like hella sucks that we got.
Yeah, the guy Blazers fans been wanting for a decade.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately not going to happen. But yes, I think him alongside Dame and, probably Nurk even, I think would just be a great compliment, right there, kind of brand spanking in the middle of the floor, kind of do it all, everything. It's kind of what's needed right now.
No, hey, I like that angle, and I'm gonna have to agree with you, man. That'd be a good spot. But yeah, man, that was a super fun draft conversation. We saved this and didn't talk about it to do it on the podcast, so I am proud of us, one, for holding that in. But super fun conversation. I'm super glad you came around on Jabari. I kind of thought you would when you went a little more into it, so I'm happy to see that. And we'll have some more draft conversations coming, as I said earlier. But I think that's gonna do it for the podcast today, man. Anything else that you want to add here today before we jump off? This was a super fun episode with you.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. No, I don't really have much to say. Okay, just like a thought. Like, I guess we didn't really talk about it much since it was game 5 and we really wanted to get into the draft. But I guess I didn't acknowledge it enough. But oh my God, does Andrew Wiggins look like the best perimeter defender right now?
So good, dude.
It's ridiculous. And the offensive charge he brings to the Golden State is like absolutely perfect. Right? Like in an ideal
world,
with
a lot more force.
Yeah, in an ideal world, right, they kept Kevin, right, all that type of stuff, they create this dynasty of dynasties, right? But 2020 is hindsight, but when they traded for Wiggins, people kind of questioned it. obviously, but it seems to have like worked out very well, and I think he's been such an X factor for Golden State. It's just like he kind of looked like Mike today sometimes, dude. Look like Kobe sometimes. Like, dude, the
Maple
turnaround
Jordan,
faders.
baby.
It like really blew my mind today. And I'm just wondering, does Andrew Wiggins have a chance to win Finals MVP?
That would be criminal to Steph, and I fucking love that take. That's hilarious.
Absolutely. That's all I got to say. Just because, dude, I mean, he has really played amazing defense on Boston's best offensive player, Tatum. And it's like,
hey, that's why Iguodala won it.
And that's what I'm saying. I think Andrew Wiggins might have a chance to win Finals MVP.
And he's scoring.
Like, dude, if he
has
has
scored the
more,
most points today. Like he's rebounding like crazy. He's making a huge impact. So I'm kind of with it.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm for sure. I'm just saying, man, if he has one more and they take it home in 6, dude, I'd put $1 on Andrew Wiggins making Finals MVP. Yeah, but that's all I got to say about
Alrighty, man. All right, yeah. Super fun episode, as I said, and we will call it there. Thank you for listening, everyone, and more to come. We'll see. Maybe the finals will be over this Thursday. Hopefully not. Hopefully the Celtics extend it, but we shall see. And like again, more draft coverage and off-season trade rumors, free agent rumors to come. So,
yes, sir.
Thanks again for listening, and peace out.
Peace.